Royal Guard found Camilla selling the late Queen's jewels, then instantly stripped her title. The royal household was unusually quiet that morning. Since the Queen had passed away, the palace had been filled with a strange mix of grief, tension, and cautious whispers. Everyone was careful with their words and actions, aware that every gesture and conversation could be noticed and remembered. Among the staff, there were rumors, small and almost imperceptible, that something was not quite right. No one spoke openly, but the feeling was there, hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Sergeant James Harding, one of the most trusted royal guards, walked through the long corridors of the palace with his usual disciplined steps. He had served the royal family for over 15 years and had seen almost everything that could happen within those walls. His loyalty to the crown was absolute, and he had always believed that the royal family was above suspicion. But lately, something had begun to nag at him, a quiet unease that he could not ignore. Camilla, the Queen's close companion, had been acting strangely. For someone who had always carried herself with grace and confidence, her recent behavior was unusual. She moved quickly through the halls, avoiding the eyes of staff, and sometimes appeared tense, checking her phone constantly or slipping into private rooms with little explanation. Harding had noticed these changes, but at first he had dismissed them. Perhaps she was grieving, perhaps she had personal matters to attend to. But the instinct that had guided him through years of royal service told him to pay attention. Over the past few weeks, Harding had begun to notice small details that didn't make sense. Certain items from the Queen's private collection seemed to be missing or had been moved without explanation. Boxes that were always kept in secure rooms were suddenly unaccounted for, and some staff whispered quietly about unexpected deliveries and unusual trips. No one dared to speak openly, and many staff members looked away whenever Harding glanced at them, as if they were hiding something. Harding was not a man to act on rumor alone. He believed in evidence and observation. Each day, he began to watch more closely, noting patterns and behaviors, documenting things mentally as well as in his private notes. Camilla's movements became easier to predict. She would leave the palace at odd hours, sometimes returning with a calm expression that seemed forced, almost rehearsed. Harding noticed the careful way she interacted with certain people outside the palace, people whom the staff had never seen before. Something was happening, and he was determined to find out what it was. One evening, Harding was on routine patrol when he saw Camilla slipping quietly out of a side door that led to the palace gardens. She carried a small bag, nothing large, but it was clear she was trying to avoid attention. He followed discreetly, keeping a safe distance. The city streets outside the palace were quiet, and the night was calm, but Harding's mind raced. Every instinct he had told him that this was more than a casual walk. He did not know what she was carrying, but he knew it could not be ordinary. For several days, he continued his discreet observations. He watched as Camilla visited private locations, always careful to avoid being seen by anyone connected to the palace. Her visits were brief but frequent. Harding began to suspect that she was involved in something serious, something that might harm the royal family or tarnish the late Queen's legacy. The idea troubled him deeply. The Queen had trusted her inner circle, and if any member of that circle betrayed her, it would be devastating. Harding was meticulous in his planning. He did not act hastily or allow his suspicions to cloud his judgment. He started to map her movements, noting addresses and the times she would arrive and leave. He even began to keep track of phone calls and meetings that seemed unusual. It was clear to him that she was orchestrating something, but he did not yet know the scale or the nature of it. The more he observed, the more details seemed to confirm his fears. One afternoon, while on a routine inspection of the palace storerooms, Harding noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. Several boxes, normally stored securely in a locked room, were missing. He immediately checked the logs and found no record of them being moved. Only someone with high clearance could have accessed them. Harding's suspicion grew stronger. Whoever had taken them knew exactly how to avoid detection. His thoughts turned to Camilla. She had the access, the knowledge, and now it seemed the motive. That evening, Harding spoke quietly with a few trusted colleagues. He could not reveal his full suspicions, but he asked them if they had noticed anything unusual, anything out of place. The staff members exchanged nervous glances and spoke in hushed tones. They too had sensed something, but no one wanted to confront it openly. Harding listened carefully, taking in every word, every hesitation, every glance. The puzzle was beginning to take shape, and he knew he had to act carefully. Over the next few days, Harding's observations intensified. He noted the exact times Camilla left the palace, the people she met, and the packages she carried. Each detail was carefully recorded in his mind and in his private notes. He began to see a pattern emerge, a trail that led from the palace to private locations in the city, always with the same level of secrecy and urgency. It became clear to him that this was not a casual activity. Something valuable was being moved, and it was being done in a way that betrayed the trust of the late queen. One night, Harding followed Camilla further than he had ever dared. He kept to the shadows, his uniform blending into the dark streets. He saw her enter a private building, one that appeared ordinary from the outside, but from his observations was connected to an antique dealer. Harding waited, hidden, as he saw her leave with the same calm but nervous demeanor he had seen so often. The bag she carried seemed heavier this time, and her pace was quick but careful. Harding's heart pounded. He now had more than suspicion. He had reason to believe that the queen's valuable possessions were being taken from the palace and possibly sold. The tension in Harding's mind grew each day. He was torn between duty and the shocking reality of what he was uncovering. Camilla was a powerful figure, someone who had influence over many within the palace. Confronting her directly could have serious consequences, but Harding's loyalty to the queen's memory left him no choice. He had to continue his careful surveillance and gather irrefutable evidence before taking any action. He began to plan his next steps with the precision of a man who understood the stakes. Every move had to be calculated. One wrong step could alert Camilla, and the opportunity to uncover the truth might be lost. Harding's dedication to the crown and to justice fueled him. He was no longer just a guard. He was the silent protector of the queen's legacy, walking a dangerous path that few could understand. Each day, as he observed Camilla, Harding felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. Sadness for the betrayal he suspected, and resolve to see justice done. The palace, in its quiet grandeur, held secrets, and Harding was determined to uncover them. He knew that the days ahead would test his courage and his loyalty, but he was ready. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on his shoulders, but he carried it with the dignity and discipline that had always defined him. And so, with each passing day, Sergeant James Harding continued his quiet vigilance. He moved through the palace like a shadow, observing, recording, and waiting for the moment when he would finally uncover the truth. The tension in the air grew, and the palace itself seemed to hold its breath, as if knowing that a storm was coming, one that would change everything for Camilla, the royal family, and for Harding himself. Sergeant James Harding had never felt his heart beat so fast in all his years of service. After days of careful observation, he finally had a clear trail that led him away from the calm corridors of the palace and into the streets of London. The city at night was quiet, the dim streetlights casting long shadows on the pavements, and Harding moved carefully, making sure he remained unseen. His mind was focused entirely on the task ahead. He could not allow his emotions to interfere, not now when he was so close to the truth. The trail had led him to a small, discreet building tucked between two larger shops on a quiet street. From the outside, it appeared to be an ordinary antique store. But Harding, with his experience and attention to detail, sensed that this was the place. He had seen Camilla enter it before, always carrying a small bag, always moving with urgency and discretion. Tonight, he had a chance to see what she had been hiding all along. He waited across the street, hidden in the shadows. He observed as she slipped inside the building, closing the door quietly behind her. Harding's instincts told him that he needed more than suspicion. He needed proof, evidence that could not be denied. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that his duty was to the crown, and the crown deserved the truth. Carefully, he approached the building, using the quiet of the night to his advantage. The air was crisp, and Harding could hear faint sounds from inside, the soft murmur of voices, the gentle clinking of objects being handled. He pressed his ear to the door for a moment, listening. The sound of metal touching metal made his heart skip a beat. He knew immediately what it was: jewels, valuable, priceless jewels that belonged to the late queen. Harding's mind raced. He had suspected Camilla, yes, but seeing the evidence confirmed what he had feared. The Queen's jewels, pieces of history, and personal treasures were here in this modest building, far from the palace's secure vaults, and they were being prepared for sale. The betrayal cut deep, even for someone as disciplined as Harding. Camilla, a trusted member of the royal inner circle, had violated the trust of the Queen and the entire royal family. He knew he had to act cautiously. Any sudden movement could alert her, and he needed irrefutable proof. Harding pulled out a small camera he always carried for security purposes and began documenting everything. Each piece of jewelry, each arrangement, each document he could see from the shadows became part of the evidence he was gathering. He took his time, ensuring that every detail was recorded clearly. There could be no mistakes. Hours seemed to pass in minutes as Harding observed the scene inside. Camilla was there, focused on the task at hand, unaware that anyone was watching. She handled the jewels with care, inspecting each one as if she were checking their value. It was clear that she had planned this carefully. Each piece had a buyer lined up, each transaction meticulously arranged. The level of planning was staggering, but what shocked Harding the most was the sheer audacity. She was taking treasures that belonged to the late Queen, items that carried not only immense monetary value but also sentimental importance, and treating them as if they were mere objects to be sold for personal gain. Harding felt a mix of anger and determination. His duty was clear. He could not allow this to continue. But he also knew that confronting Camilla directly at this moment could be dangerous. She was powerful and influential, and any misstep could put him in jeopardy. He needed a strategy, a plan that would ensure the jewels were secured and Camilla held accountable. He retreated slightly, still hidden to consider his options. He decided that he would continue to gather evidence until he had everything needed to prove her guilt beyond any doubt. He watched as she completed the arrangements, preparing the jewels for delivery. The care with which she handled the pieces, the way she documented each item, showed a methodical mind, but it also exposed her completely. Harding's camera captured the evidence he needed, the receipts, the packaging, and most importantly, her presence at the scene. There could be no denial. Once he was satisfied with the documentation, Harding took a moment to reflect. This was not just about stolen jewels, this was about betrayal at the highest level. The Queen had trusted her inner circle to protect her legacy, to safeguard the treasures that had been in the royal family for generations. And here was Camilla, violating that trust in a way that could never be undone. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Harding, but he remained calm. He knew that the truth had to come to light. The next step was critical. Harding needed to return to the palace, secure the evidence, and report his findings to the proper authorities. He moved carefully, avoiding detection, and made his way back through the quiet streets. Each step was measured, each decision deliberate. He could not afford to make a mistake. The jewels were priceless, yes, but the integrity of the crown was even more valuable. Upon returning to the palace, Harding went straight to his private office. He reviewed the footage, checking every frame, ensuring that nothing was unclear. Every image, every detail, showed Camilla handling the Queen's jewels and preparing them for sale. The evidence was irrefutable. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with the weight of what had to be done. He could not act alone, but he knew that the palace authorities would act swiftly once presented with this proof. Harding prepared a detailed report, outlining his observations, the evidence gathered, and the implications of Camilla's actions. He included the photos, notes, and any supporting information that would leave no room for doubt. This was not about personal vendettas or gossip. This was about protecting the Queen's legacy and ensuring that justice was served. Every detail was included, every step carefully explained. Once the report was complete, Harding arranged a discreet meeting with the palace officials. The gravity of the situation was conveyed without exaggeration. He presented the evidence calmly, letting the facts speak for themselves. The officials were stunned, their expressions reflecting a mixture of shock and concern. Camilla's actions were unprecedented, a betrayal that none had anticipated. But Harding's professionalism and meticulous documentation left no room for dispute. The officials quickly realized the seriousness of the matter. Camilla had violated the trust of the Queen, the royal family, and the entire institution. Immediate action was required. Plans were made to secure the jewels, prevent any further sales, and confront Camilla with the evidence. Harding's role was central to the operation. his careful observations and documentation providing the foundation for the palace's response. Meanwhile, Harding reflected on the path that had brought him here. From the first moment he had noticed Camilla's unusual behavior, to the careful surveillance, to the discovery of the jewels themselves. Every step had required patience, discipline, and courage. He had acted not out of suspicion alone, but out of duty to the crown, ensuring that the Queen's legacy would remain intact. The weight of responsibility was immense, but Harding had carried it with unwavering commitment. As plans were finalized, Harding prepared for the next phase, confronting Camilla and ensuring that justice would be done. He knew it would not be easy. She was influential, cunning, and accustomed to getting her way. But the evidence was undeniable, and the palace authorities were prepared to act decisively. Harding felt a sense of resolve and calm determination. The Queen's treasures and the honor of the royal family would be protected. The night passed with an air of anticipation. Harding continued his usual patrols, blending into the background, observing the palace with a heightened sense of awareness. Every detail mattered, every movement was noted. He was ready for what was to come. The discovery of the jewels had confirmed his worst fears, but it had also clarified his mission, to ensure that Camilla was held accountable and that the Queen's legacy was preserved. By morning, the palace was quietly mobilizing. Security measures were increased, the jewels were secured, and the plan to confront Camilla was in place. Harding remained vigilant, aware that any misstep could jeopardize the operation. His mind was focused, his heart steady, and his resolve unshakable. He had uncovered the truth, and now it was time for the palace to act. In the quiet of the palace, Harding reflected on the events of the past days. From suspicion to discovery, every step had been guided by duty, honor, and loyalty. The path ahead would be challenging, but Harding was prepared. He had seen the betrayal, documented the evidence, and ensured that justice could be pursued. The late Queen's jewels, symbols of history and memory, would be protected, and those responsible for their theft would be held accountable. As the day unfolded, Harding prepared himself for the confrontation that would change everything. He knew that the truth had the power to shock, to challenge, and to alter the course of many lives. But he also knew that without courage and vigilance, the betrayal might have gone unnoticed, the Queen's legacy forever tarnished. Harding, as always, would stand firm, ready to protect the crown and serve with honor. The day of confrontation arrived with an almost tangible tension in the air. The palace, usually a place of routine and ceremonial calm, seemed quieter than usual, as if it sensed the storm about to break within its walls. Sergeant James Harding moved through the corridors with his usual precision, his senses heightened, every step measured and deliberate. The past days of observation, careful planning, and evidence gathering had brought him to this moment. Now everything depended on courage, tact, and the undeniable proof he carried. Camilla, unaware that her secret had been uncovered, moved through the palace with her usual air of composure. Yet beneath her calm exterior there was a subtle tension, a sense that something was off. Harding had noticed it over the past days, small hesitations in her movements, quick glances around rooms, a slight nervousness in her interactions with staff. It was a side of her few had ever seen, a hint that even the most powerful and confident can be unsettled when their schemes begin to unravel. Harding was given the private chamber where the confrontation would take place, a room usually reserved for the most confidential matters. It was a neutral space, free from prying eyes, yet it carried an air of authority. Every detail mattered, the positioning of chairs, the lighting, the quiet that filled the room. Harding entered first, placing the evidence carefully on a polished table. Each photograph, note, and recorded message was laid out with precision, ready to be presented. He reviewed the materials one last time, ensuring nothing was unclear or ambiguous. There could be no mistakes. When Camilla arrived, she entered the room with her usual poise. At first, her expression showed curiosity, then mild annoyance as she noticed the table covered with documents and photographs. Harding observed her carefully. Her usual confidence seemed to waver slightly as she realized that this meeting was not casual, that it carried a weight she could not ignore. She glanced at the evidence and then at Harding, her eyes searching for a clue, a hint that perhaps this was just another formality she could navigate. Harding began speaking calmly but firmly, presenting the facts as they were. There was no accusation in his voice, no personal judgment, only the truth backed by clear and irrefutable evidence. He detailed his observations over the past days, the unusual movements, the private visits, the handling of items that were unquestionably part of the late Queen's personal collection. He showed her the photographs, each frame capturing her handling the jewels, arranging them for delivery and preparing them for sale. Each image told a story that could not be denied or ignored. Camilla's initial reaction was one of disbelief. She opened her mouth to speak, to deny, but Harding continued, calmly laying out the chain of evidence. He explained how every action had been observed, documented, and confirmed. The careful planning she had relied on to hide her actions was now completely exposed. The room was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the soft rustling of papers and the faint ticking of a clock. Harding remained composed, his eyes steady, never wavering, as if to say that the facts themselves were enough to convey the gravity of the situation. As the minutes passed, Camilla's expressions shifted. The disbelief gave way to shock, then to anger, and finally to a reluctant acceptance. She realized that the evidence was too strong, that the truth was undeniable. Harding watched carefully, noting the subtle changes in her demeanor. There was no need for harsh words or raised voices. The proof spoke for itself. The betrayal she had orchestrated, the violation of the Queen's trust, the theft of priceless treasures, all were laid bare in front of her. The confrontation was not only about evidence but about accountability. Harding spoke of the Queen's legacy, the trust that had been placed in Camilla, and the moral responsibility of those close to the royal family. He emphasized that loyalty was not just a matter of duty, but a reflection of integrity and honor. Every word was measured, every sentence deliberate, ensuring that Camilla understood the seriousness of her actions and the consequences they carried. Camilla, once known for her charm and ability to navigate delicate situations, now found herself cornered. The calm composure she had relied upon in public and private interactions could not shield her from the reality of Harding's evidence. Her attempts to interject or offer explanations faltered, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt. Harding, however, did not react to her defenses. He remained steady, allowing the facts to convey the message, allowing the weight of the truth to settle in the room. The tension was palpable. Harding knew that this moment could define the future of the palace's internal trust, the reputation of the royal family, and the consequences for Camilla herself. He maintained his professionalism, ensuring that the confrontation did not devolve into anger or personal attacks. His focus remained on justice, truth, and the protection of the Queen's legacy. Every action, every gesture was guided by a sense of duty that went beyond personal feelings. Camilla's defenses gradually weakened. She realized that no amount of charm, influence, or denial could undo the evidence laid out before her. Harding's calm presentation, combined with the irrefutable proof, left her with no choice but to face the consequences. The room, though silent, seemed heavy with the weight of history, of betrayal, and of justice about to be served. Harding's presence, steady and unwavering, reminded her that the law of duty and honor was greater than personal ambition or status. After what seemed like hours, though in reality was only a careful passage of minutes, Harding concluded the presentation. He summarized the evidence, the observations, and the implications. He spoke of the steps that would follow, emphasizing that the palace authorities would act swiftly to secure the stolen items, prevent further sales, and ensure accountability. There was no room for negotiation, no space for excuses. The truth had been revealed, and it could not be ignored. Camilla sat quietly, her usual confidence replaced by a subdued realization of the severity of the situation. She understood that the breach of trust, the handling of the Queen's personal treasures, and the betrayal of duty would have far-reaching consequences. Harding observed her carefully, noting the subtle changes in her demeanor, the slight slump of her shoulders, the averted gaze, the quiet acceptance of responsibility that had once seemed impossible for her to acknowledge. The confrontation, though tense and emotionally charged, remained professional. Harding's approach demonstrated that justice and duty could be upheld without resorting to anger or humiliation. It was a lesson in integrity, a reminder that loyalty to the crown and respect for the Queen's legacy were paramount. Even in the face of betrayal by someone powerful, Harding's unwavering commitment ensured that the truth would prevail. As the meeting concluded, Harding gathered the evidence and prepared it for the next stage, the official palace procedures that would secure the jewels and ensure that Camilla faced the consequences of her actions. He remained calm, composed, and vigilant, aware that the situation was delicate and that any misstep could undermine the efforts of the past days. His focus was absolute, his commitment to justice unwavering. The weight of responsibility was immense. Harding knew that the events of this day would be remembered, not only for the confrontation itself, but for the courage and integrity demonstrated. He had faced a situation that few could have imagined, a betrayal at the highest level, involving someone within the inner circle of the royal family. Yet, through patience, careful observation, and unwavering commitment to duty, he had ensured that the truth was revealed. As he left the room, Harding felt a mixture of relief and resolve. The confrontation had been successful, the evidence undeniable, and the path forward clear. The palace authorities would act decisively, and the Queen's treasures would be protected. Harding's role as a guardian of the crown had been tested in an extraordinary way, and he had risen to the challenge with professionalism, courage, and honor. Outside the private chambers, the palace continued its quiet operations, unaware of the storm that had been contained within its walls. Harding resumed his duties, moving through the corridors with the same disciplined steps, though now with a profound sense of accomplishment. He had fulfilled his responsibility, not for personal gain or recognition, but for the protection of the Queen's legacy, the honor of the crown, and the principles of loyalty and duty that defined his service. In the days that followed, the palace implemented measures to secure the stolen jewels, prevent any further misappropriation, and address the breach of trust. Camilla's actions were formally documented, and she faced the consequences appropriate to the severity of her betrayal. Harding's meticulous preparation and unwavering professionalism ensured that justice was served efficiently and decisively, demonstrating the importance of integrity and vigilance in the protection of the royal family. Through it all, Harding remained humble. He had acted as any loyal guardian would, guided by duty and respect for the Queen's memory. The confrontation had been difficult, the emotions intense, but his resolve had never wavered. He had seen betrayal at the highest level, acted decisively, and ensured that the truth prevailed. The palace, the royal family, and the legacy of the late Queen were all safeguarded because of his courage and unwavering commitment to justice. By the end of this chapter in the palace's history, Harding had proven that even in moments of extreme challenge, integrity and professionalism could prevail. He had faced one of the most delicate and potentially explosive situations imaginable, and had done so with calm determination and unshakable moral courage. The confrontation with Camilla was not just a matter of recovering stolen items. It was a testament to the power of truth, the importance of loyalty, and the enduring strength of duty. The moment after the confrontation felt almost surreal to Sergeant James Harding. The room, which had been filled with tension and unspoken words just hours before, now carried a quiet sense of resolution. Camilla, stripped of her usual poise, had been confronted with undeniable proof of her betrayal. The palace authorities were preparing to act swiftly, but Harding knew that the real work, the consequences, was only beginning. This was not merely about stolen jewels. It was about restoring the integrity of the crown and ensuring that the Queen's legacy remained untarnished. The first step was securing the stolen items. Harding, along with a team of trusted palace security officials, carefully transported the jewels back to their rightful place within the secure vaults of the palace. Each item was meticulously checked, catalogued, and photographed again to ensure that nothing was missing or damaged. The level of care given to the Queen's treasures reflected not only their monetary value, but also their historical and emotional significance. These jewels were part of the royal story, symbols of trust, legacy, and history, and Harding understood their importance deeply. Meanwhile, the palace moved quickly to formalize Camilla's consequences. Her royal title, which she had held for years, was stripped immediately. Official notices were issued to all relevant institutions, ensuring that there was no ambiguity regarding her status. It was a dramatic action, but one that was necessary. The betrayal she had committed could not be ignored, and the palace's swift response sent a clear message. Loyalty, integrity, and respect for the Queen's legacy were paramount, regardless of one's status or influence. news of the incident began to circulate, carefully controlled by the palace press office. The story was shared in a way that emphasized the courage and vigilance of the royal guard without resorting to scandal or sensationalism. Harding's role was quietly acknowledged, his dedication and professionalism highlighted as an example of true loyalty. Staff members, both within and outside the palace, felt reassured that the institution was capable of protecting its treasures and upholding its values, even in the face of betrayal from within. Camilla, for her part, faced a profound personal reckoning. The loss of her title, the exposure of her actions, and the knowledge that she had betrayed the trust of the Queen weighed heavily upon her. She had been accustomed to influence, to navigating situations with charm and authority, but now she was confronted with the full consequences of her actions. The jewels she had sought to profit from were returned, her schemes had been exposed, and the palace had acted decisively to restore order and integrity. It was a moment of public and personal accountability unlike any she had experienced before. Throughout the palace, staff and officials reflected on the events that had unfolded. Many had suspected that something was amiss, but Harding's careful observation and methodical evidence gathering had made the truth undeniable. His professionalism set an example for all, showing that even in the face of powerful individuals, duty and integrity must never be compromised. Conversations among staff shifted from whispers of suspicion to admiration for Harding's courage and dedication. It became clear that the strength of the palace lay not only in its history and traditions, but also in the vigilance and integrity of those who served it. The palace authorities also took steps to review security measures and protocols. The incident had revealed vulnerabilities that needed to be addressed, not to punish, but to prevent similar breaches in the future. Harding played a key role in these discussions, offering insights based on his observations and experience. Each policy was carefully revised, ensuring that valuable items and sensitive matters were safeguarded more effectively. The lessons learned from Camilla's betrayal would shape the palace's operations for years to come, reinforcing the importance of vigilance, loyalty, and accountability. In the days that followed, Harding returned to his regular duties, though the experience had left an indelible mark on him. He continued his patrols through the palace, maintaining the discipline and composure that had always defined him, but there was now a quiet sense of pride and accomplishment. He had faced one of the most challenging situations imaginable, acted with integrity and courage, and ensured that justice was served. The Queen's legacy remained intact, and the palace had been reminded of the vital role of vigilance and loyalty in maintaining the trust of the royal family. Camilla's personal and public life was irrevocably changed. The loss of her title and the exposure of her actions forced her to reassess her position and influence. No longer shielded by privilege or power, she faced scrutiny and reflection that few could endure. The palace, meanwhile, moved forward with renewed focus on its mission and values. The jewels were safe, the Queen's memory honored, and the institution's integrity preserved. Harding's actions had ensured that the palace emerged stronger, with a renewed sense of purpose and accountability. The story of the Royal Guard's vigilance became an example within the palace and beyond. Harding's careful observation, methodical evidence collection, and calm yet firm confrontation demonstrated the power of duty and integrity. His actions highlighted that courage is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and guided by principle. Staff members, from the newest employees to senior officials, were reminded that the strength of the royal household relied on each individual's commitment to honesty, loyalty, and respect for the institution. Harding's legacy within the palace was quietly cemented. He had faced an extraordinary challenge, balancing discretion, professionalism, and moral responsibility in a situation that could have easily spiraled into scandal. Yet he remained composed, ensuring that the Queen's treasures were returned, that the betrayal was addressed, and that the palace's reputation remained intact. His story became a testament to the importance of vigilance, courage, and unwavering duty, inspiring all who served the royal family. Camilla's response in the following weeks was marked by reflection and quiet withdrawal. She faced the consequences of her actions, understanding that influence and charm could not shield her from accountability. The palace, having acted decisively, moved forward with confidence that justice had been served. The Queen's legacy, symbolized by the recovered jewels, continued to be honored and preserved, a reminder that loyalty and integrity were the foundations upon which the royal household rested. Harding, despite the intense pressure and responsibility, returned to his regular patrols and duties. The palace, while grateful, recognized that his sense of duty was unwavering, and he carried out his responsibilities with the same quiet dedication as always. The jewels, now safely secured, were displayed for ceremonial purposes, with additional measures taken to ensure that their security was never again compromised. The palace had not only recovered its treasures, but also reinforced the principles that guided its operations and its people. The incident served as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance. Harding's careful observation, patience, and courage prevented what could have been a significant loss to the royal family and the nation's heritage. The Queen's legacy remained intact, the palace's reputation preserved, and the lessons learned from the betrayal strengthened the institution. Harding's role, though performed with humility and discretion, became a model of professionalism, demonstrating how integrity, courage, and attention to detail can protect even the most powerful institutions. As time passed, life at the palace returned to a semblance of normalcy, though the memory of the events remained. Harding continued his work, quietly ensuring the safety and integrity of the royal household. Camilla, removed from her position of influence, faced ongoing scrutiny and reflection. The palace, guided by the principles of duty, loyalty, and respect for the Queen's memory, moved forward with renewed focus and vigilance. The story of the recovered jewels became part of palace history, a testament to the power of courage, diligence, and unwavering commitment to justice. The recovered treasures, now safely displayed and secured, served as a symbol of resilience and integrity. Harding, ever the disciplined guardian, understood that his actions had preserved more than physical objects. They had protected trust, honor, and legacy. The Queen's memory, embodied in the jewels, remained untarnished, a reminder that loyalty and vigilance were the true guardians of the crown. In the end, the palace, the royal family, and all who served it emerged stronger. Harding's courage, calm professionalism, and meticulous approach to uncovering the truth had ensured that justice was served, that betrayal was addressed, and that the Queen's legacy was preserved for future generations. The jewels, safe and secure, were more than valuable possessions. They were a testament to the enduring strength of integrity, the importance of vigilance, and the power of duty performed with honor.